Hey guys.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
What a great weekend.
Great weekend, you know?
And
What'd
I
you
had
guys
so
do?
much fun.
Travel, hit the beach. What'd you do?
I actually had a really nice weekend. The weather was great. I do pretty well in quarantine life. Weekends are pretty much quarantine. Weekdays is where I'm struggling.
Why? Because there's no one in the office.
Yeah, it's just like if I work from home, I realize, like I think I mentioned, that I just crave being around people.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to be alone. And we don't really watch TV like I'm sure, like we have our guest today, Matt, you know, he's a single guy. He just has the TV on all day. I don't have that luxury.
Yeah, you're right.
The luxury of having I would die to be single and quarantined.
I mean, it's not even close.
I do feel bad, and I this is the only time, and take it lightly, I feel bad for my friends who have young kids during this time.
Yeah. You should feel bad.
You should feel really bad.
It's a different level.
Do you know how bored my kid is?
Yeah.
Just walking around the same damn toys, can't go to the park, can't do anything.
Just going nuts though, right?
And
Do
it's
they
He
just
just
have a lot
looks
of energy?
visibly bored. He's just like,
Yeah.
All right, dude. Like, how much more can we take of this?
It's just a big change, you know?
It is tough.
Okay.
you
so,
mentioned a guest.
Yeah. So we have a guest. Our good friend, Matt Bilinsky.
This is an amazing guest. Well, I've known Matt pretty much, I would say, most of my adult life.
Yeah.
Probably more post-college than during college. Matt, you know, to put it lightly, people think I'm arrogant. Matt takes it to another level.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
To say,
I don't know if arrogance is the word. I think just you know.
Confidence.
I mean, just he's cutting through the bullshit. We're not tiptoeing around anything.
to say
Me and
Matt
you.
Bilinsky is divisive is an understatement.
So
Polarizing.
And he really has the confidence to like you do good on the pod. You're really outspoken on tweets, I noticed.
Yeah.
This guy will hop on a live for 20 minutes and be like, look, motherfuckers, here's what's going on with the coronavirus.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
the reason why he's here, so Matt's a lawyer. He actually does legal work for all of our brands, so we know him very well from that perspective. He's, as you know, from a social media perspective, he's always been more of a Laker commentator. And then in the last 30 days, he has become one of the foremost Corona influencers on the internet.
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
mean, I
I
trust. It's BNN, right? Is that your brand now?
You know, that's I pretty much trying to search for a name for my podcast is for 6 years is why I don't have a podcast.
Yeah.
And then out of this, whatever I started doing about 3-4 weeks ago, some people just naturally gravitated towards BNN.
Yeah.
So that's the working title for the
Working
moment.
title. So BNN over CNN, MSNBC, Fox News.
Bilinsky News Network.
That would be
and,
it.
you know, Matt's one of those people that is synonymous with just LA. When I think LA, I think Matt Bilinsky. I saw him at Miami and Art Basel, and I looked at him. He was, I think, working out above me at some hotel. And I look at him, I'm like, it's really odd seeing you out of place. And he's like, it's like seeing your substitute teacher outside of
At the market.
At the
that
mar-
is true.
I call Matt Beverly Hills Neighborhood Watch.
Yeah, that's good. And you know what else I love about Matt is usually when you see a friend is going live. This happened to me last night. You see a friend is going live, you're like, you know, it's my friend. What am I going to do? So then I click on it. I'm like, I wonder what Matt's talking about. Click on it. It's just Matt talking to the camera. So worst case, once again, when it's your friend, normally you bail out of those. But he caught me in like 2 seconds because he was so confidently leading us and telling us what was going to happen in Los Angeles with the coronavirus. I watched for a good 10, 15 minutes and I didn't find myself disagreeing or saying, oh, Matt, you're crazy. I was like, okay, Matt, tell us.
Yeah.
We'll
And-
do
and-
what you say.
Thank you guys.
And the reason why I really wanted to bring you on is because you have been posting a lot of good information on Twitter and your Instagram, and then you've been hosting some lives, and I think it would be interesting because I think you have a pretty balanced view. You come off a little alt-righty, but you're not.
No, listen.
I think it's more anti-woke.
No, the thing. Okay, listen, guys, and this is part of the modern mindfuck of the current political discourse that then informs the discourse around Corona. Is that like it's complicated? It's really nuanced, and I mean, you want to talk like alt-right. I mean, you're going to use that term to smear people, including me, perhaps. But it's like, dude, son, I'll call it Nationalist Intelligentsia, whatever.
Okay.
But there's like an aspect of this that is misrepresented that happens to, have been super fucking validated by stuff that's going on, particularly in terms of China and trade. And these things happen to sit next to some stuff that's a little uglier. But if just because it's kind of closer to some of the ugly stuff, doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, so you're a China virus, Kung Flu type of guy.
Kung Flu, I'll stop short on Kung Flu because I think it might detract from the more legitimate criticism of China. But yes, do I think China's essentially been fighting a unilateral war against the United States for 25 years or so, and that a lot of this is culminating in what we're seeing right now? And then, I know this because for 20 out of those 25 years, I was asleep to it, and now people are waking up. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit on the podcast. Do you believe this is something that they intentionally let out and just purposely didn't control? Or where's your stance? Because I agree there needs to be some sort of punishment to China.
Yeah. All right, so I'll give you my take. And so is this, I hope this is a useful metaphor because I think it's the right one. It kind of came to me and it seems to have resonated. Imagine there's an apartment building. China's in an apartment, one of the apartments. A fire starts in that apartment, okay? Regardless of whether they started the fire purposefully or by accident, what they did do, I don't know whether they started it purposely or not. What they absolutely 1000% did do was then go and disable all the smoke detectors and fire alarms in the building to save their own face, and that ended up fucking everybody else. That they did, it's not even a question.
Can I ask you another nuanced question?
Sure.
Did they disable the smoke detectors in this metaphor because they wanted to save their own face? Or was there also a little bit of almost like, let's say China owned the building and they wanted to make the insurance claim and they wanted the building to burn down? Like, did they do it to screw the other countries as well? Was there any of that motive?
I think it's 70 to 80% propaganda and their reputation. And then there was definitely a little bit of like, all right, this is already out. Who really cares? Whatever.
Yeah, because the way I see it is I don't think this was like released out of a bioweapons facility and this is all a part of a grand plan.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think it was purposefully released. If you want, what I think, if you put a gun to my head and said choose, there's
I put a cough to your head.
Put a cough to my head. If you're risking a cough, no mask cough. There's some crazy biowarfare lab in Wuhan.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. I think they were dealing with the virus. They accidentally let it get loose. They tried to cover it up, and that's what happened.
So here's my problem: is I've heard some what would seem to be completely unbiased people say that simply by genetically sequencing the virus, you can tell that it came from animals. You can sort of sequence it back.
Okay, but how about this? So they could have still sequenced it from animals and put it in the lab.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's a little bit of a coincidence? Okay, so here's this coincidence, right? It's a strange coincidence that it originated from the city with the lab in it, right?
Yeah.
So one, if you're the Chinese and you're doing this all totally deliberately, like if you set the fire in my metaphor, you're not going to be dumb enough to release it in Wuhan. It's fucking everyone's going to sniff that one out, right? So, but then also of all the places, it just happens to have, if it came just from someone eating a bat or whatnot, it just happens to have come from the same place that has the lab.
Yeah, it is fishy. I just think there was also like viral experts that forecasted before any of this happened that a virus could break out and it could easily come from one of these type of markets where they have exotic animals stacked on top of each other and it's so unsanitary. But the point is
Totally a fair point.
The point is we'll never know, and I probably won't ever argue that point because what the fuck do I know unless something gets released. My thing is, it just really seems to me like they took this moment where they knew that they could treat their citizens in a way that nobody else really would, especially the U.S. They could get a handle on this quicker and make everyone sort of dependent on their manufacturing and the fact that they're just up and running again. This lasted, let's say, 3-4 months with them. I feel like it's going to last 2 years, the side effects of this with us.
Oh, easily. But look, they're already locking back down, dude. They don't have it under control.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my perspective on that. And this is, a history nerd, and I study stuff from like 20th century history. And this is a piece, if you study, like you still gotta understand, guys, this is a communist nation. Okay, mm-hmm. They may have become this like kind of weird, crypto capitalist.
Yeah.
They're still a communist nation. They still operate on all the principles of those communist countries from the 20th century that we all forgot about. And if you study communism and those ethoses, propaganda is not just a thing they do. Mm-hmm. It is what they do. Mm-hmm. Okay, lying lying, amorality in the name of protecting the party, protecting the country, all that. It's not a feature. That's a feature, not a bug. Okay. So, and they do, everyone, because listen, there's a lot of stuff that you can criticize about the United States and the way that we do things and corruption and lies and all. If you're to use the term that Bill Maher used and, people accusing Saddam Hussein of being Hitler, that's like calling Oasis the Beatles. Okay, so if you're looking at like who takes a certain approach to morality and lying with the United States government versus like the Chinese government, it's like Oasis and the Beatles. They will lie. They will put morality and doing the right thing low enough on the priority, so low on the priority scale, you could not even imagine. And I think a lot because we're so far removed from the Cold War, we forgot that like this is what communist countries do, bro.
Yeah.
They will do stuff like they will be sitting there and they will know that this virus, if it breaks out, is going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. But hey, if it makes us look bad to make it look like we don't have our hands around it, we'll lie our asses off to everyone. Yeah. If we got all this data that can help everyone track this, because I'm telling you, this is every piece of data that you do not get on this has an exponential compounding impact on how bad you get hit with the virus because you don't know where to track it. Yeah. You don't know how to you want to talk about business? Listen, for sure, there's a lot of criticism that can go to American politicians. Part of the problem in terms of like our politicians trying to make decisions on lockdowns that affect business is based on not having firm data from China and other nations that experience this to be able to make good predictions. Okay? Yeah. So once again, not trying to say that none of our guys have any culpability, but if you're a business person and had China been straight up and given everyone all the data right off the bat in December and January, would there have been less second, third, and fourth impacts on small business in America and on the American economy? 100%. Yes. The same thing on the Italian economy and the Spanish economy and the UK economy and everybody else.
So I guess, but you've read those reports where the intelligence community kind of knew in January that this was bubbling, or you don't buy that?
No, dude, but they only knew one piece out of 50 pieces.
Right, that's fair.
That's it. They only knew that they were lying. You can't just know that they were lying. You have to know how they were lying. Yeah. Okay? It's not just us, bro. I'm telling you, look into Taiwan and the relationship between China and Taiwan, okay? China, it's a core piece of national pride for China that Taiwan is considered to be. So Jesus, there's so much to get into about China and the World Health Organization. But one piece of this is Taiwan was trying to blow the whistle because they're right there, okay? China wants no relationship between Taiwan and the World Health Organization because they still consider themselves to be an independent nation. December 31st, Taiwan trying to tell everybody, hey, here's what's going on. Here's some data about the coronavirus. China's fucking squelching them down, telling the World Health Organization, don't relay any of the information out of Taiwan, relay our information. 2 weeks later, January 14th, World Health Organization Twitter account tweets out, no human to human transmission of the virus. What do you think's going on here? It's not rocket science.
Okay, on that note, on the Chinese note, one of the other interesting things that you've been posting is TikTok.
Sure.
What is your stand on TikTok?
It's same, man.
I haven't seen this.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't seen the TikTok stuff? All right, so.
While we're at World Health Organization, the reality is TikTok affects more people than the World Health Organization.
Okay. All right, so let's do a little TikTok. You may have recalled a company, 3-4 years ago that was tearing it up called Musical.ly. Yep. If you were over 30 years old or not in the business community, you really know about it, but it's getting a lot of usage. Got purchased by a Chinese company called ByteDance, I think in 2018. That became TikTok. TikTok is a Chinese company. It is, by all estimations, valued at about $78 billion now. But you got to understand, they operate by different principles. No matter how much the government's up in your business as a U.S. company, if you're a Chinese company, government's not just up in your business. You are the government, okay? You just have to accept it. If you're dealing with a Chinese company, to the extent the government, the Chinese Communist Party, wants to have control over that company, they will. If you're dealing with a little factory out in Wuhan that produces some textiles, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't really care enough about it to really take that over. You think they don't care enough about TikTok?
Yeah.
They care enough about TikTok. So TikTok is trying to tell everybody, hey, we keep... we're abiding by we in China, Chinese privacy laws. Everywhere else, we're abiding by everybody else's jurisdictional
Yeah,
privacy
that's
laws.
bullshit.
Total bullshit, man.
Yeah.
You know what was tested out during that NBA controversy
Right.
after Daryl Morey tweeted. After Daryl Morey tweeted out, some pro Hong Kong sentiment. I think it might have been end of December. Yeah, it was actually in November because I remember NBA preseason. So that became a topic on TikTok. And so what started happening, you started seeing American TikTok accounts getting censored about commenting on the Hong Kong situation.
Yeah.
So obviously there was not a separation of church and state.
Yeah, you couldn't even find like Rocket's TikTok
Correct.
during that. I remember that.
Correct. So yeah.
So let me ask you this. What is because then we'll jump into some news, but like, what would be the like overarching wrap up of a thought? Like, we're fucked. China's really scary. Like, what do we do?
Okay. Oh man, so much here. All right. First off, I have to not to hype another podcast, but the podcast you have to listen to the first 15 to 20 minutes probably all is a guy named Eric Weinstein on Joe Rogan the other day because he lays it out. He lays it out better than I could. The problem is that we became we're not fucked. China's weapon is dependence. The more you're dependent on them, the more they have you by the balls, right? So if to kind of, to fight back here, it's about relinquishing our dependence on them for all the things that we're dependent on them now. And that's a lot of different categories, man.
It's too hard. And I'll give you a perfect example. A year ago, we started thinking about diversifying out of China just for obvious reasons, just to have that diversity. So we actively went and did that. We found places all over Mexico, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India. And because of all this, we put some pressure on trying to make stuff in other countries. Guess what? Can't make anything anywhere else in the world right now except China.
Crazy.
The only people that will accept an order and deliver on time right now is China because for whatever purposes of running their country, business is open.
Yeah.
Maybe the theaters and coffee shops are closed, but factories are open and people are shipping product faster than ever. Bangladesh, no. India, no. Everything has come to a screeching halt everywhere else in the world except China.
Yeah.
So they literally have put a gun to our head at this point.
And to add to that, where do you think this trillions of dollars of stimulus is coming from? It's debt that China's buying.
Yeah, 100%.
So if they're not the buyer, we have no stimulus.
Yeah. Well, that is another one of the mind fucks about this situation. Is in the short term, you're damn right, they've got us by the balls.
Yeah.
However, if they have us by the balls in the long run so much that they bring us down, they are kind of fucking themselves.
Yes.
Thus, it's going to be I don't know the pacing. It's going to be a slow but sure retraction of 20 to 25 years of placing all of and it's not just the physical manufacturing, guys.
Yeah.
It's intellectual property.
Yeah.
They manufacture higher tech stuff better than we do now because and some of it, you just go down a rabbit hole. Go Google, China espionage. I mean, it's all over the place, dude.
Yeah.
It's General Electric last year. It was Marriott breached the year before. It's it's nuts.
And then on top of that, China is willing to go around the world and work with governments that the U.S. won't.
Yeah.
So they'll go work with Iran. They'll go to dictatorships in Africa that we may stay away
all
from.
over Africa.
Yeah.
They love Africa.
That's where the World Health Organization thing comes from. They're funding all this stuff for this Ethiopian guy who runs the World Health Organization in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So of course he's in their pocket.
Yeah. So let's get into some news.
All right. Well, there's our intro. So
We've come a long way from demarching to the Chinese national
March
anthem.
on stage.
Yeah, I did do a march. Yeah.
I had a live event at
That was what, January?
no, it was probably October, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the
October.
earlier
That was
one.
early
Yeah.
one.
Okay, at least I was pre-Wuhan. I was supporting the Chinese government.
Gosh. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about some details. It looks like New York is obviously a huge epicenter of this outbreak in the U.S., the biggest. That being said, it looks like the worst death rate is in New Orleans. Is
Yes.
that because of health, low income, obesity, those sort of things? Would you say? I mean, I know that none of us are doctors here, unfortunately, but does that seem to be the correlation?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't come out outright and said that, but it's so obvious. The obesity and diabetes in the South, and we said it on last episode, the South is going to pay the biggest price from a health perspective because I just don't feel, I don't know what the medical capabilities are in the South, especially in those rural areas, and then you take on all the health conditions of the people generally in that area, if that virus, and they were so late to lockdown. Most of the South, Alabama, I think it just happened Friday.
Yeah.
I mean,
I gotta say that too.
Week, right?
This is one thing I just have to say, and we don't have to get stuck on it, is like, yes, China did so poorly, but like, I mean, our president is at his press conferences saying like it's going to go away mysteriously. It's not that big of a deal.
Sure.
There's so many states that haven't done lockdowns or just did. There's governors that are just learning that people with no symptoms can transmit. Like we also, that didn't help us, but we did such a bad job. And
oh, well, dude, it's hey, this did expose also decades of internal decay and terrible things that. And I mean,
these idiots allowed Mardi Gras to happen.
But here's the thing, dude, at that, you got to remember, like, all right, us in California right now, we've experienced the emotional, psychological shock of locking down. Remember when someone told you before we locked down, how hard did it hit you?
Yeah.
It hits you pretty hard, man. And like the reason I'm taking it easier on the US, because all the other countries fucked this up too. Look at dude, all those European countries screwed it up. The only reason that a couple of the Asian countries is pretty much just South Korea and Japan. Even Singapore's locking down again. South Korea and Japan are pretty much the only people on earth who did not screw this up. But yes, do we have politicians that screwed the pooch? Without a doubt. But once again, when you're faced with operating on lower data, like bad data, and your choice is, hey, we're going to shut down the economy and this, that, and the next thing happens.
Okay, but what about Alabama and Louisiana?
So we'll get into...
That's, to me, is unexplainable.
I'll explain. Okay, here's the thing. It's not just... you're correct on a lot of the health factors, but it's multivariant. So there's another variable here, and that is about the states that have lower population density. It's not a fantasy. Yeah, it's a fact. They're not as high risk. So what happened in New Orleans, it's not rocket science, guys. They had Mardi Gras. It's a bunch of people around each other at the same time, and that's what spread it. That's why that was an outbreak there. This is not it's a virus. The more people you have around in a closer circumstance, the more it spreads. Other states down there that don't have that, I can't say they're not handling this well, but yes, they're going to get hit far less badly than New Orleans did.
It's just crazy to me that you have Fauci on TV, even though he's kind of battling Trump a little bit, saying, I don't understand why there's not a national lockdown. Nobody should be exempt. Do this. That's our leading expert, and there are still governors saying, not us yet.
Well, it's tough, man. America's a federalist system, man. You got 50 states.
I'm just saying it's just not a data problem at that point.
At that point,
I get it.
It's just
That's
choosing
pure
to
negligence.
ignore.
Oh, no. Any governor hasn't shut down as of the last week deserves all the criticism in the world. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you'll know, because you listen to it, Weinstein also said that Nancy Pelosi should step down. Governor of New York should step down. These people should step down, and we should have a revolution tomorrow because of the blatant choice to ignore data.
Totally get it. Totally get it.
It's interesting. It's this weird double hitter where we got delayed and then we didn't take it anyway, and now we're fucked.
I'm telling you, the pure amount of issues that were simmering below the surface in America that this rose to the surface is crazy.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Everyone keeps comparing it to the Great Recession, Great Depression. I think it's the Great Cleanse. That's what it is. And figuratively and literally there's just this cleansing of society and the way it operated. And it's an amazing, it's actually an opportunity to restart everything the way that, because people always used to say we're never going to change. It's too hard to change. This is what America is.
Yeah.
This is it. This is your only opportunity you may get in our lifetime to make a substantial change in healthcare, education. And it's part of the next topic we're talking about, that New York is making everyone go into distance learning to figure that out. I don't believe in it, but people think that might be a way of life for schools in New York City.
They're saying this could kill colleges.
Yeah.
So, obviously the big colleges have all these endowments, but I heard that Stanford or Harvard or one of them is still charging, they've made the decision to still charge students full rate, still charge them for the room and board when they were kicked off of the campus. They have these massive endowments, but all of these smaller colleges, I feel like there's so many kids realizing what the fuck am I doing? What am I paying for?
I think Stanford reduced pay it the senior staff by 20%, froze hiring, froze everything. So they already know that they're going to see in the fall reduced number of people that are going to be paying tuition because they're going to hold strong like, hey, we're still going to charge her $50,000, $60,000 a year. But they know that it's just going to be a shortage of people. The problem I see is you're right. There is a chance to shift how we operate, right? Where GDP of the United States is 30% is effectively the government. After all the stimuluses, it's going to be well over 50%. So effectively the government owns the country. We've nationalized the country. Yeah. And now do we empower the government to be able to make the decisions to solve all these things?
We're socialist.
Well, one
it's
thing that
Bernie's dream.
I literally look at it. I look at it.
Country.
I look at it like this might be stupid to say, but similar to the Me Too movement in the sense of, did it cure everything? No. Is there still creepy shit happening? Yes. But damn it, it was such a big wave that it forced at least some change in behavior. And I think that that's what will happen here. I think people are going to go back to bad instincts. People are going to still try to cling on to the glory days. But I think a wipeout like this is so substantial that luckily, the good news is there's part of it that you just can't ignore. I mean, people will just be out of business. Consumers' behavior is just shifting. People are acknowledging they're spending a lot of money where they don't need to spend the money. And so I think we will get some long-term, you know what I mean? But of course, Stanford's going to try to hold on. Harvard's going to try to hold on. Like you guys were talking about off air, money's going to go to Macy's. We're going to try to keep the old dream alive.
Yeah.
But man, even with our business, my business is so small comparatively to what's going on. And I am noticing that any place where I allowed there to be any fat and refused to acknowledge what was happening, like the future, that's being exposed. And that's now a pain point for me. And that's happening with everyone, I think.
Totally. And there's, man, this is one kind of school of thought, just to hype another person that totally, elaborates on what you're talking about us becoming just a really bloated nation with a lot of unnecessary stuff. There's a guy named Ross Douthat, who's a New York Times columnist. He's the right-wing New York Times columnist, but he's not a Fox News obnoxious goon. He's like a polite guy, intellectual guy. And he's just been banging the drum for 4 or 5 years. Decadence. America is just a decadent country. And that's not decadent like, wealthy and opulent and we have too many gold columns in front of our houses, although that's part of it. But it's about stagnation, about not paying attention, about having nothing to sharpen your instincts.
And fake growth.
Totally.
Like there's so much fake growth that was happening.
Yeah,
in all aspects.
A lot of the growth was actually just funded by debt, not actual economic
too much fucking money.
Yeah.
So your money can fund your growth, your fake growth, which generates new fake money. It's just so absurd.
It was unsustainable, man. There's no chance this was all going to sustain. Something had to happen.
So Chamath, actually, I know I've talked about him a lot in the podcast, but he's actually brought
What's
up
that podcast called again?
All-In, and then he was also on Recode Decode with Kara Swisher.
Got it.
So he brought up a point. Airlines, since 2008, have spent 96 cents of every dollar of free cash flow into share buybacks. 96 cents of every dollar. And guess what's going to happen? We're going to bail out the airlines. So they literally used all their money to boost their stock as opposed to, he was like, if they'd spent 96 of every dollar trying to improve flight travel, make planes faster, supersonic, then at least you tried.
Yeah. That's been the new American business model, is that strategy for every business.
Someone even mentioned, if you want to talk about structural changes, is that because of the airline bailouts, they might require restructuring of flight composition. And that's no more sardines in the skies, right? Where you're just a bunch of people all right, you're going to get some leg room now because there's going to not be as many people on each flight.
Because the fact that you can't go faster anywhere than you could 30 years ago is insane.
You can. They just choose
flight
not
travel,
to.
unless you are the top 0.01% where they have those apartments in the first class suites, have gotten significantly worse.
Okay, how about this? Just one little hiccup I wanted to talk about because it is funny in a moment of lighthearted, then it's kind of serious. So all of these classes are going to Zoom. I mean, most businesses are as well, but the biggest thing is all of these teachers, these regular teachers are trying to figure out Zoom and trying to get all their kids in there and pay attention. It is made for some incredible content online. There's these YouTubers called the Nelk Boys that have started having their fans send them the login to their classes, and then they jump in and they do these pranks. But it's becoming a very real problem because no one was prepared for that. So now there's this clusterfuck of, all right, I guess we have to figure out Zoom. And now it's like pranks and people sleeping and people accidentally peeing while the mic is still on. Like just wild shit.
And Zoom has now been banned by New York City schools. They had a huge security breach issue on Friday. And now everyone's like, we can't use Zoom. It's not safe. And this is a company whose stock has just exploded. It was doing like, I don't know, I think like a 40 or 50 or maybe 100 times revenue or
50x trailing revenue.
Trailing revenue.
Well, because they only have 0.8% of their customers pay.
Yeah. I just started paying on Friday because I had a meeting longer than 40 minutes.
I mean, all the criticism of Zoom, but the fact that from an engineering perspective,
it's crazy
that it didn't crash from going from 20 million users to 200 million daily users.
Yeah.
That's like an engineering phenomenon.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's something interesting that may, in terms of what structural changes may pop out of this, in Korea and in Asia, you've got influencer teachers. They're online like video conference teachers that are influencers and make $3 million a year.
Yeah.
Really?
Which is, if you're a great teacher, you should be compensated for teaching.
I mean, the best teacher on the internet is Khan Academy.
Yeah.
And it's free.
Yeah.
That's another change that I think should happen. I don't know that it will. That's a pretty hard one. But like, there should be these star teachers that have classes of 1 million people.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are we even allowing every class to be broken up into these 20 kids? And some teachers are complete shit.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. It just seems like something where if you could pay for a membership to this star teacher to really teach your kid economics or English or whatever the hell the thing is, like, it's so worth it.
Well, hey, dude, you guys been on YouTube? You see Masterclass freaking throwing every dollar on earth towards ads right now. Yeah. So some more youth-oriented educational version of what Masterclass is doing, I see it.
I mean, you could revolutionize. It could change the entire system.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, next thing. I want to talk about babies. So we talked about you guys. We talked about people with kids during this time, tricky scenarios that you didn't really plan for. Another big thing that we've joked about is how many people are going to get pregnant. There's going to be a lot of pregnancies. There's going to be a lot of divorces during this time. There's this article that sort of warns, maybe don't rush to get pregnant. Maybe use protection.
I've been trying to push all my friends who didn't have children. You guys should have kids now.
You just want to share in the...
Well, just like, I mean, like, what else is going on? And yes, I do want to share.
Yeah, you know what's worse than having an 18-month-old in quarantine, an 18-month-old and a pregnant wife?
That's me. That's true.
Sorry, guys.
Pregnant wife.
Can't relate.
Yep.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because, like, there's definitely going to be... I was on a call with a bunch of founders, and one of them makes a product for breastfeeding, and she's aggressively saying, she's been around 10 years, she's like, in February, we're expecting a massive baby boom of next year.
So is the point of what they're saying is don't overflood the hospitals with deliveries in February?
I think they're saying also be aware that you might lose your job.
Yeah,
or like
20% unemployment.
You're going to like bring a kid into the world.
And right now, you can't go into your appointments, right?
So I can't go to any doctor's appointment with the wife, no.
Yeah.
Wait, why not? Because California hospitals are freaking ghost towns right now.
No, but like, for example, my wife had a fetal center, like ultrasound, and they said your spouse cannot attend with you. So she just FaceTimed me. In hospitals in LA, the husband can go into the delivery room with you. You can have your 5 minutes of bonding, and then you can't come back in till you pick up your wife. So it could be a day, 2 days, whenever she gets released. So you can't, which is a pretty like emotional thing when you're having your first child to not be there, to not the spouse be there. So I and imagine, so if we have this baby boom and we don't have a vaccine, this is how pregnancy is going to be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I mean, our good friend Mikey Taylor, I think this is public information, is about a month out from having a baby.
Yeah.
And like, so he's going to be in the middle of this stuff. So not only are you going to go in there, have these weird rules, safety precautions, but you're also going to then come home and be in quarantine with a new baby. And from what I've read, even though Corona is skipping young children, there have been some weird cases with infants.
Yeah.
So infants there is some risk there.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know, it just seems so stressful.
And right now, hospitals, if you have something for your kid, they're only letting one parent,
Yeah.
which is also super stressful.
Yeah, geez. Okay. And then one more little tidbit of a fact that could probably be an hour-long conversation in itself. Just a little stat, 430,000 people apparently have traveled from China to the U.S. since the coronavirus whole thing.
I'll let you take it from here, Matt.
All right,
The next 5
Here's
topics.
BNN.
All right.
Just look at the next 6 topics.
I did these from Matt.
Yeah, this
I
is
did
all-
these topics from
So
Matt.
just
Yeah, man,
All right.
you should just riff. We should riff through these next 4, man, because next is World Health Organization and
Wow.
the Chinese accomplice.
Yeah, you're going to have to tie me down right now. Travel from China.
Why didn't we restrict Chinese travel? Do you think
Some-
that's a data issue, or is that just incompetence?
Some of it, no. I don't want to be in the position where I have to defend Trump, but that's the one thing he did right. He was pushing for the travel ban from China because, once again, this situation informs his worldview, which is the mindfuck of why it validates his worldview, yet he fucked it up.
Yeah.
It's the craziest part.
yeah, because he's anti anyone coming
Oh,
in.
if you want to talk about the MAGA types I follow on Twitter, the smart MAGA types were.
Are you a MAGA type just for our audience?
No, listen, Nationalist Intelligentsia. Okay. MAGA's way
Did
too.
you vote for him or not?
No.
Okay.
MAGA's way too tacky for me. I'm not into that stuff. Okay. These smart, but I'm just using it as a term because whatever.
That's such like the Beverly Hills way to.
Yeah.
Like Trump is way too tacky. I
tacky.
don't fuck with those
Well,
types.
it's just like I get he's a goon. I don't support. Hey, it's a hoax, folks.
Yeah.
Okay, the smart people who are kind of MAGA, they've been shitting on Trump since January on this. I was watching him. They were like, he is botching it. China is floating this one right. They're putting on a silver platform, and he's totally fucking it up.
Yeah.
Okay, because they saw where it was headed, right? And whatever, we could get into that a lot, but let's move on to the how MAGA am I topic. So in terms of travel, yeah, Trump was first off. You do realize that China was trying to blackmail us on travel, right? They said, oh, if we make all your medicine. If you impose a travel ban, we're not going to send your medicine in.
Yeah.
Like these are bad people. Okay.
But why
And
weren't we checking temperatures in February?
That's a structural American flaw. We're bad at this stuff. We are 300. South Korea is 40 million people, man. They have a government that is centralized, not 50 states. It's easier for them to implement stuff. We don't have a history of implementing this stuff.
Yeah.
Not that it's an excuse. I'm not excusing it. I'm just explaining this is why. And so if we're talking about travel, one thing you might have seen on my story, I was like, caught my eye and like, why did Detroit get hit so badly? It's not the only inner city, right? Detroit, international hub from China. Delta flies shitload of flights from China into Detroit.
Yeah.
No surprise.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but you want to know that? Okay, but then here's the next layer. Oh, who knows that drama? Like you want to know how I found it in the comment section on responses for someone I follow on Twitter, and then I was like, wait a second, let me check this out. Unbelievable. You see the flight patterns on Delta, tons to Detroit.
They were just sending missiles into Detroit.
It's crazy. And we'll get to the other place, which is northern Italy, in a second. But you want to know the number one place that has the most incoming flights from China is Los Angeles.
Yes.
Not hit. So, and this is something I haven't been able to check out. It's probably, China's just big. China was, the flights to LA are probably from provinces in China that did not get the virus.
Because it's probably mainly Beijing, Shanghai.
Yeah, wherever Wuhan and these secondary districts are flying in, that's what got hit. So you then take it, let's take it to an international territory, Italy. One of the things that like chilled me the most, about this. All right, it's coming back from Art Basel in December, just to throw a little LA bullshit in there. And I was like, had extra time at the airport, and I remember I was reading this article in the New York Times about the tension in northern Italy between Chinese immigrants and the local population in northern Italy, because the Chinese had come in and essentially taken over the textile business there. And it's like, that there's some, if you want to talk the MAGA version of Europe, is these far-right populist movements and their tension with local communities. And then this Wuhan thing happens, January, whatever, and then February, it starts breaking out internationally. And the first place it gets broken out, northern Italy, I didn't sleep much that night.
Yeah.
Okay, that like chilled me. Like, once again, I don't think they purposefully did it, but like you see the connection, right?
There was a Wuhan to Northern Italy flight.
Tons.
Right?
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah.
To Lombardy, I think specifically.
Bro, I'm not saying they did it purposefully, but that's how it got there. It's
Yeah.
not a question. This is not a theory. This is a fact.
Which is essentially crippled the country.
Pretty much, yeah.
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 God, that's wild. Okay, can we jump?
Sure.
Okay, next one. This one blew my mind. We touched on it a little bit in the intro. World Health Organization. I would say on these topics relatively uninformed. I would consider myself basic citizen on this stuff. I just see World Health Organization. I assume completely
Independent.
unbiased, independent, looking out for nothing but the good of the health of this world. Everything they say must be as accurate as it gets. Turns out they're in China's pocket.
Yep.
They had this weird moment where the guy refused to acknowledge.
Yep.
What was it? Taiwan.
Taiwan, yeah.
Yes. Danced around it in the most slimy, snaky way.
Correct.
And some of the early, like you alluded to, the early tweets and the early recommendations more served China than they did the true threat of this virus to the world. My mind's blown.
Yeah.
So how did this happen? And what is? Give me a kind of a quick overview.
Okay, I'll make it as quick as possible. You've got to understand that and this is what I was talking about earlier, about China slowly but surely taking over various institutions and supply chains and all over the course of 20, 25 years, and nobody really paid attention. So multilateral organizations like supposedly neutral organizations like the World Health Organization, they've slowly come under Chinese influence, right? And so you think even if China's building some freaking hospitals in Africa, whatever, the World Health Organization is still going to do the right thing, and it comes down to it. Nope. All right, World Health Organization, you think like, the World Health Organization, they know that this pandemic breaks out in China. They're going to get in there, boots on the ground, and see what's going on right off the bat. They didn't get to China until January 28th.
Were they not allowed? I forget what happened.
They weren't not allowed. What had they asked to? Had they said, no, we need to be in there, you need to let us. But the Chinese said, we have it under control. We're giving you correct information. Just trust us. Okay. And they said, okay, sure. Because they're getting paid by China. Okay. Once the whistleblowers, because there were whistleblowers, December 31st, or even before that, Taiwan trying to tell everyone, saying, hey, World Health Organization, this is what's going on. China's telling them, that China has forced the World Health Organization to deny Taiwan's participation in the World Health Organization, right? They're trying to isolate Taiwan. So they're trying to censor everyone, trying to alert everyone what's going on. They're telling, they're saying the World Health Organization, you're just going to tell everyone what we're telling you about this virus. We're not going to let you come in and verify it yourself. Sure. All the way through January, they're just relaying everything that the Chinese government tells them to everyone. The World Health Organization Twitter account is just tweeting whatever China tells them. Turns out most of it was untrue. They finally, on January 28th, agree to let the World Health Organization in. They go in on January 31st. What's the message from the World Health Organization after that? Oh my God, the Chinese government's done the best job ever. They're so great. They've corralled this thing, yada, 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 yada. And that, that just kind of shows you, it shows you where their motives are and that they're not benign. They are not prioritizing, the betterment of the world and everybody's health. And then you saw with that, I mean, did you guys tell me, did you guys have any idea there was anything like that going on with the WHO before you saw that interview?
No idea.
Why would we?
Nothing even
right?
close.
Why would we?
Okay.
Yeah.
Only,
I would not even pay attention to the WHO.
All right, so that's why, Nationalist Intelligentsia, fucking jerks like me who've been studying the China thing for 4 or 5 years now, we're a little more up to date on this stuff. Yeah, dude, these guys are not, they're
bad guys.
They're bad guys.
So if you just step back a little, we already were leaning towards distrust of government and institutions just generally around the world, I felt like. This just cripples it, right?
A lot of it.
Because at this point, even average Joe retail Joe is going to be like, everyone's lying.
Go ahead.
Well, my problem is just that maybe I'm being pessimistic here, but what I see coming is the distrust is through the roof, but nobody really does anything.
Yeah.
Like, I think some things get reshuffled, but I think your average American does not even know where to start, what to do. It couldn't even be bothered with the inconvenience of trying to do something. Like, I don't know. That's my worry. And that's why I think that we got Trump. And that's why I think that there's a lot of people that watch Trump's broadcasts and think, yeah, this guy has it under control. There's a lot of governors that are just learning, once again, that you can transmit this when you're asymptomatic. There's a lot of ignorance and sort of like, what is the word, like complacency, where I just don't see a revolt coming. I just see people being really, like after the banking crisis, nobody did anything. People were just more pissed. And people were just more pissed for years, maybe up until currently. I think this just leads to a level of pissed in this country and not happy with your life that is like really scary.
And I think a good, I don't want to, I'm going to jump to the politics portion.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the comments. So Joe Rogan said, I believe on Friday, that he, given that Joe Biden is the candidate on the Democrat side, and the way that he's fumbling this, I'm going to have to vote Trump. And that caused like a huge stir on social media.
So that we don't get caught in the clickbait.
This is what I wanted to ask, because you listen to Joe Rogan.
I heard it.
What actually happened?
I heard it. So what actually happened, just to be careful of the clickbait, is he said...
Totally.
I watched the clip.
Yeah. He was talking about how stupid it is, the way that politics work and the whole Democratic, like the same way they edged Bernie out in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like the Democrats want someone who's going to play ball for them.
Yes.
And if you're not going to do that, like he loves Tulsi Gabbard. He was talking about how great she is and how she'd be a great leader in this time. Because she doesn't give a fuck. She's a wartime leader, right?
Yeah.
So he was saying that they play this game. They're going to edge Bernie out. They're edging Tulsi out. Everyone's out. All we're left with is Joe Biden. Joe Biden literally cannot even form a sentence.
No.
Forgets what he's saying in the middle of what he's saying. And so all you're doing is completely relying on his cabinet.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I just couldn't vote for Joe Biden. This is absurd.
Yeah.
I couldn't vote for Joe Biden. And then he said, I would rather vote for Trump than Joe Biden.
I totally got that in context. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is, though, because it brought to another question that Joe Rogan, whether anyone likes it or not, is probably the most influential person, period,
Without
in
question.
America.
Yeah.
And if he rationally explained that to his listeners, which are tens of millions of people, and even me as extremely liberal Democrat, I understand, like he's probably a pretty impartial person in the way he thinks for the most part. Yep. And the fact that even someone like him, and that's who's going to decide the election, is going to be someone in the middle who's going to decide. We already know 40% is blindly voting blue, 40% are blindly voting red, and it's just the people in the middle that decide the election. And unfortunately, given that we're in all-time crisis high, we have a candidate that is kind of scary.
So here's the scary part. Which the point I get, what he's talking about with Biden, you're just relying on the cabinet because you don't trust him. Yep. Every president from the history of time is required to be the one to make the decision on the most important issues. So famously, President Obama sat in the Situation Room. He had 50% of the people tell him, don't invade Osama bin Laden's compound. 50% said, do it. He ultimately had to be the one who had to sleep at night and decide what to do. Yep. So that's what you're electing a president. Yeah. So Biden, if it's true that he can't
remember,
he can't speak sentences and relying
he'll forget
on a
he's
cabinet.
President. He'll be like, Mr. President, I suggest we do raid that compound. And,
and then not to harp on every show that talks about government, every cabinet's influenced by different decisions with different people, and they have their own self-interest. That's why we have a president. Yeah. They have to make the decision.
Yeah, I think it to me, it was a mind-blowing fumble that the Democrats couldn't beat Trump in 4 years ago.
I want Fauci.
Well, I mean, you've seen what I've been ripping on for it's been I am constantly mind blown about how bad they are at opposing him.
I mean, literally
mind blown.
Are you a Mayor Pete guy?
Huh?
Are you a Mayor Pete guy?
Not really. Who do I like on that stuff? First of all, I mean, I find more validity with Bernie than most of them. I don't like Bernie, but he's got one lane that he's good in for sure.
At least he has conviction in what he
Well, do you see my metaphor? I was like, Bernie's like Dennis Rodman. Rodman just rebounds his ass off, doesn't do much else, but he rebounds. Like Bernie, in terms of working class and great. I just don't want him commenting on anything else.
Yeah.
But so this wraps around to your point about is America going to change? And here's one place that I do think it's going to change. Mm-hmm. I do think this is a shocking enough and transformative enough moment for some people that some people from the private space, because that's why we have such people the last 30, 35 years who are smart and talented, they don't go into politics.
Yeah.
They go make money, right? And I'm not blaming them for that. But I think you are now going to have, this is a transformative moment that you will convince at least some people that, all right, I got enough money. I'm going to go try to figure this out. Because the problem was the only guy from the private sector who said, I want the headache of going and doing this thing was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons he won.
Yeah.
He was the only, because he had the set of skills, say what you want about him with this dude's not eloquent, but he had a set of skills in terms of, to say the least.
Yeah.
The guy had a set of skills from the private world that allowed, did you see him wax the rest of the Republicans?
Yeah.
He literally just stood up there and waxed them to their face.
But think about the motivation. It takes, if you take everyone from let's say the business world or whatever you want to, private citizens, it takes someone who just wants so badly to be more famous. That was the motivation. I don't think...
Because Mini Mike couldn't even win a primary.
78 years old. He's past his expiration.
But he wasn't ready for... I think Mini Mike, there was a part of Mini Mike that probably legitimately thought he could help and get shit done, and then he just got smoked. Yeah. I think, and I don't know if we all agree on this, I think we do, Trump's number one motivation for running for president was to be more famous, was to spite people who said he couldn't do it. I don't think there was true motivation in there that he could change the country for the better.
I'm slightly gonna disagree with you because he does think that things he harps on makes the country better. He might be wrong. I'm not saying he's right. Yeah. I do think because some of the thing you got to understand that some of his greatest hits album, like the China stuff, his stuff he's been pounding since for 30 years.
Yeah. But don't you think that he's the type of guy that just thinks everything he touches is better because he's there and he wants to show everyone by being president? I mean, what's the top level of like narcissist ego feed? It's to be the president of the country.
Totally.
Yeah.
Not like Bill Gates saying, I'm going to step in here because I can be very helpful. That it was a very different motivation, and it takes almost a psycho to even want to take on all that shit.
Total psycho, but it's another aspect of we'll call it MAGA mindfuck hour. It's part of the mindfuck of Donald Trump. You 100% are correct on the narcissism, but he does believe like, yeah, oh my God, I told the UN, I told NATO to step up. I called everyone in NATO a bunch of assholes and told them to step up their military budget. We should have done that 20 years ago. Ooh, I finally, I wasn't going to let North Korea just sit there and like, maybe I moved North Korea in the right direction. You can argue whether or not he did a good job. And like, I ain't saying that he did. I do think he thinks that these are things that America needed to do.
But don't you think coronavirus situation as an example, like I'm a firm believer that you can really only be driven by one target, right? So your target is to maximize profits. Your target is to do good in the world. Your target is whatever, right? You can say that it's this while doing this, but I believe that at the end of the day, your one core target will be the thing that makes the decision between this or that. I think that let me just finish this and then you can. I think that the way that Trump handled the coronavirus situation in particular was he was driven solely by not crashing the economy in the beginning, because that is the number one indicator of if he's good or not. And then, to him at least. And then secondly, like right now, to have these press conferences be optimistic, motivational, draw ratings, be great moments, not actually look out for the health of the country, which is why he's not going in and saying, okay, what is the medical advice? What are people saying? Let me figure out how to inform our country of that. He's saying, how do I make this press conference really hit? And how do I make people love me when I get off the stage? And that's so deadly.
Yeah. Oh, well, he's not made for this moment.
Yeah. No.
To say the least.
Yeah.
He was not made for this, right?
He was great up until a month ago.
I mean, I won't say he's great up until a month ago. But like,
when the stock market was hitting record high, he was fine.
And someone, this girl I'm friends with, his dad was a Wall Street guy. I mean, she actually put it really good. He was like, these are Wall Street guys. They take big bets. Yeah. And this is a big bet that turned out wrong for him. And the bet was... listen, maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I think I'm right on this one. Trump, the reason he fucked this up, he thought the Chinese were screwing with him. He thought the Chinese were screwing with him to that they were doing this whole thing to spook him into overreacting and crashing the economy. And he didn't. He's like, this is what the Chinese do. They know I've been beating them in the trade war, and I'm sorry, but he was. And they want to. This is how they're fighting back, and they're trying to spook me.
The comments are going to be interesting.
I like that. I like it. I mean, yeah. This is the problem, though. I do want to say, you mentioned it, is like even saying something like that, which is a perfectly valid opinion.
Yeah.
It's like in today's day and age, we say, "Oh, you're MAGA."
Right.
Oh, you're racist.
Yeah.
Like it's because you had an
Especially
opinion.
Matt, he's white male. He's target number one.
Yeah, like white male from Beverly Hills.
Listen, dude, like I love this. Like my China criticism is racist. You know who they're fucking the most? The Taiwanese.
Yeah.
What? Shout out to the benevolent people of Taiwan and South Korea. Our friends, like, no, I assure you guys, I am not criticizing them. It's about, not even the Chinese people suffer the most. This is about the Chinese government and the citizens who are the agents of the Chinese government. That's it.
Yeah, that's the problem. People can't separate criticizing the Chinese government versus the Chinese people. He's not talking about the average person in Beijing.
That's what you're going to see happen to tie it all back in with this Joe Rogan quote. And I think Joe Rogan is dead on the sentiment of how you should be thinking if you're thinking clearly. But it's going to get instead wrapped into, oh, Joe Rogan's MAGA now, and write that off and whatever. And it just, my original point was, it blew my mind that in 2016, the Democrats couldn't beat Trump. It was looked at as like, wow, you could have had anyone but Hillary Clinton and they would have beat Trump. After the way that Trump has fumbled this situation,
this is a
Labrador retriever could beat him in the election because they would take anyone competent. And what you came up with is a man who can't even remember what he's saying halfway through.
I don't understand how the head of the Democratic National Committee didn't sit down with Joe Biden and say, like, to some of his advisors, like, this guy might
can
not
there
be
be a
capable.
contested convention?
Who knows? We got a while to go.
Yeah.
We're still 3 months away from the convention, guys.
The convention got postponed to August.
So what if Obama went to Joe and said, look, do what's best for your party, step down from the race, and let's go get somebody else?
It's not out of the question.
I think that's what should happen.
They have to. Grab the best governor you got and put him in there.
Yeah.
Well, everyone's talking Cuomo, but the problem with Cuomo is it's going to look bad if he just bounces from New York in the middle of all. New York ain't. New York is going to be bad for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to look if in July this guy says, "Hey,
good luck with the rest of the
Give that
country."
to Joe
pass the
Biden.
baton, I'm going to go be president."
Give that to Joe Biden, and you go. Let him handle that. Like, Jesus, man, it's mind blowing. It's like the amount of incompetence. I hate to just sit and complain, but the amount of incompetence that this situation has uncovered is
Anyone
wild.
could have beaten him. Literally anybody.
I keep on saying, I was like, all you guys have to do is not be crazy.
Yeah.
And Bill Maher also says, if my liberal side associates with Bill Maher, all you guys got to do is not be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
Wild.
You
Can't do it.
Okay, so one other thing I wanted to mention is, like, there's some sketchy information coming out or stuff that makes me uneasy. That, number one, China is now doing more lockdowns again because they're not in the clear, even though that was the narrative for a little bit. Singapore, who did a great job originally, is reporting their highest daily cases. Like, this shit, let me just kick it off with this, you guys, whatever you want. Number one, scary as shit. Because there was kind of this belief of like, we're going to lock down for a couple months and then we'll go back to normal life. That's out of the question. The next thing is, those are countries who did the most that you can pretty much humanly do. And it's now looking like it's going to turn into a much longer problem. So for the U.S., who still hasn't even locked down some states and still is a little loosey-goosey, that makes me believe that we feel serious impacts from this for the next 2 years.
Well, the first issue is I think where I totally agree with Matt is we can't take any cues from China for anything anymore. Like the way they handle the situation, they reopened the country to show power to their people.
Correct.
They did not reopen the country for the benefit of their people. So even though they reopened and are operating, they don't give a shit about their people. It's just about power. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, we have data. We look at California data. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed right now. But I don't know the rest of the country. I know California. If we stay on this trajectory, our state can make a different decision a month from now and say, you know what? we can let people go back to work. Maybe there's no nightclubs and sporting events and whatever, but like we can make that next step. We can't make it as a country because every situation is different. But our state needs to operate differently, and we have. And I just don't want to take any cue from China or Singapore, frankly.
Yeah. Here's what scares me. The New York Times tweeted this morning, using cell phone data where people were traveling. So what parts of the country were normal travel versus no travel? So California, effectively no travel. Northeast, effectively no travel. We should post this, but look at the middle and the south of the country. They're still traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's correct.
All right, so
as of last week.
All right, so I think there are some situations that we can look to have a little information here. One's Florida, okay? When I saw all those spring breakers, I was like, oh shit, but I was like, all right, this is gonna test out the theory about heat. There's a big theory, and a big piece of this is, does heat and humidity stop the spread or impact the spread? It's pretty good evidence that it does, okay? Because Florida tests, they've only got 12,000 positive tests so far. And the second I saw those Florida photos, I went and checked the weather in Florida. It was like unseasonably hot in early March.
Yeah.
Early 90 degrees, hot, big humidity, a lot of humidity. And so I was like, dude, the heat wave might have saved everybody's ass. And it's kind of looking like it did, because they haven't there's some scary stuff going on in Florida. Sure, the infections are going up, but overall, for a state that has that many people, they were the last state of the highly populated states to lock down, doing pretty good.
But what about the narrative and the graphs of all the spring breakers and tracking cell phones of where they went back to, and the fact that
that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem, but I'm starting, and we'll have to look at that. But I mean, there's some evidence that like when it travels, even though the initial travel, and that's why it took so long from when those initial Chinese travelers came to the States for it to really break out, that there's some like fractional impact on, having gone back. Oh, I got back to, I went home after spring break, but then I went in my house. They don't go back and like go to another Mardi Gras, right? Yeah. Like you go back from spring break and you go crash for 48 hours in your house and go recover. That type of thing. So like, is that true in every respect? No, but you're not going to get as crazy a spread from those, because less of those people got it in the first place. Because what happens is the reason heat it stops transmission is because as the particles float from one person to the next, the heat breaks them up. Yeah. So less people got it in the first place to take it back to wherever they went.
So you're okay with the spring breaker?
I mean, I'm not, because there's such schmucks, but like it's.
But to me, it sounds like you're comparing like it's almost like less people got it than what would have if the weather wasn't a factor, but still way more than if they weren't even there in the first place.
But right? Maybe not way more, maybe just a little more.
Yeah, but that, I think even allowing that to be a question is like, dude, such, you know what I'm saying?
No,
on Florida's part.
No.
Like I just hate the arguments that are like, someone did wrong, but look, it would have been way worse if the weather wasn't hot.
Oh, sure. No, listen, it's also a very difficult thing to separate, what may be mitigating factors from letting politicians who were morons off the hook, right? Yeah. Like Ron DeSantis of Florida may have lucked out that he made bad decisions he was making on bad data. Mm-hmm. Gavin Newsom made a decision on bad data, but he made a bet and he made the right one. Mm-hmm. California had no data. And they decided to go on lockdown, and that's why California, is going to be probably, at least from this round one, going to be the success story. Mm-hmm. There's multiple rounds, don't get me wrong, but at least this round, they didn't have the data. No one was testing. March 16th, and from what I can tell, it was one of the factors was that cruise ship that got hit, that docked off the coast of like Oakland, and they saw what went on with that cruise ship, and they made a decision based on that. Is every governor going to make a decision based just on that? I don't think so. Yeah. But he did, and he made a bet. He made a bet. Turned out he won. So
real quick before we move on, great time for an ad. Pete,
he has no mic.
Pete, come here.
Draw him now. Run.
Okay, go. Pete, he didn't say sit down and take a
real
seat.
Comfy.
Guys, I'm back for the ads. I've been waiting all week. I've got it prepped. I got to tell you something. These new Apollo shoes, I've worn them every day. I don't think I've taken them off. These are the greatest shoes I've ever worn.
It looks like it.
And let me tell you, if you head over to newrepublic.com, that's right, shopnewrepublic.com, they have 25% off the site-wide, and they're donating 10% of profits.
What are we donating them to?
I don't know. But who cares? Because now's the time to donate. Everybody needs donations. Who knows what the fuck they're donating to, but you get 25% off, so there's a big win. Head over to the Menlo Club. If you want to finally dress up, stop wearing the stupid sweats you wear around the office all day, or should I say you're home for that sake. $20 first month. Can't beat it. This is too good. I can't help but laugh.
Great ads.
Grand AC shirt starting at $5. My God, it's practically Goodwill over there.
Yeah.
You can get anything and everything for less than like $10. By $50, you have your whole family dressed.
Okay.
And the kinetic short if you're a big outside runner, which a lot of you are.
Well, you can only be an outside runner.
You can only be an outside runner
Might
right
as well
now.
buy outside running shorts.
Boom! 50% off. What more do you need? We're damn near giving it to you.
Okay.
Okay, and then Y&R, up to 70% off styles.
Okay.
You can't beat it.
Thank
Guys,
you, Pete. See you later.
All of them. Go ahead. Go shop.
Okay.
Okay, I gotta go.
Oh man, thank God for Pete, man. I could just hear him screaming.
It literally sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, I like it. It's good.
Okay. You ready for some more news?
Yes.
Let's talk about influencers in this current climate. We've talked a lot about them, about their jobs, about their money, blah, 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 where it's going to come from, whatever. I've actually had complaints. I've had people sending me, and I just want to validate them before I bring them up, but I've had people sending me like, oh, look at this influencer. They're selling masks, and they're saying that they're donating, X amount of dollars, but actually they're pocketing $5 per mask because they're making them in China and blah, 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 and they're going to make $250,000. Like, I've gotten really thorough breakdowns of like, please expose these people. Mm-hmm. But this one in particular that we're talking about apparently needed a coronavirus test, had a doctor friend, was able to cut the line to get it, which that has not been taken well. Celebrities doing that. A lot of people have done that.
Yeah.
People are really unhappy about that, rightfully so. And then also, instead of taking the self-isolating advice, went to the Hamptons with her family. So I think...
After testing positive.
After testing positive. And there's the cherry on top. Jesus. So I think... I want to know about this and about this topic, but I also think not a good time. We talked about David Geffen. I see a lot of influencers we're stuck at home quarantining, and you're at a mansion with your friends making TikToks.
So I want to preface it, but I actually don't think it's an influencer thing. It's a wealth thing. And
but it's a social media thing.
There's
there's a lot
never
of
been a bigger
those two
time.
things play into each other.
But let me say this though. Yeah, I agree. I'm saying there's a lot of wealthy people that are living really good right now that aren't talking about it.
Yes.
It's the idiots
Yes.
that insist on stunting while people are dying.
Something Navy, a very popular New York social media in the fashion space, kind of has been documenting her whole process of getting tested for corona, and then going to the Hamptons.
Well, testing positive. Let's be clear. Testing positive and then not quarantining and documenting you leaving Manhattan to Hamptons, which angered all the people in the Hamptons. You tested positive. You're talking about publicly. Why are you coming here?
And her nanny's with her on her TikToks. And it's just here's what it is. It's blatant disrespect for what's going on right now. And that's where the real problem is. Look, if you're wealthy and you use your connections to help your family, it's done fucking quietly. You know what? Go for it. I have no problem with that. You've been donating to the hospital for years. The left wing's named after your last name. I don't give a shit. You deserve it.
Just don't rub it in people's faces.
Don't talk about it. Shut the fuck up. You went to the Hamptons? Great. Don't fucking post. You can't not post.
Don't post. You're not doing what you're told to do when you test positive.
Read the room, guys. Ain't the time.
Yeah.
And it's been the time. They're so used to it that it's been the time. This is so in their blood to go do this.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
And it contrasts really interestingly with there was this article about why the Asian countries are handling this so well. Because in Asia right now, it's not embarrassing to wear a mask. It's embarrassing not to wear a mask because it looks like you're not sacrificing.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you want to contrast the moral. I'm not anyone's dad. I'm not here to preach morally to you, but like just show where America's mindset's at versus some of these other countries at. It's like we haven't been in the sacrifice tip for a while. We've been in the flaunt your stuff, peacock, and show your opulence tip. And this is how that manifests.
One of my hopes that I don't know if will come true, because once again, similar attitude of like, it's really hard to change people, is that the appetite for that type of fuckery diminishes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Through this.
It will, because everyone, even the wealthiest, are going to have some pain here.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's going to be in bad taste. It will change so quickly. Look at the fact that this woman got called out on Daily Mail, CNN, like major news sources talked about this, tells you that like a month ago, she would have been photographed because, her and her kid walking down Hamptons in their fur coats is cute. Now it's like,
yeah, and to
heinous.
say the fuckery's like hopefully over. She had a big partnership with Nordstrom. Nordstrom commented on her public post.
Yes, they did.
There's no more. We don't have a relationship with her anymore, and we don't plan to in the future. Right? Is that effectively what they said?
Yeah.
I mean, Nordstrom just like, we want zero affiliation with this.
Yeah, and that's how people are going to take this. If you are not respecting the situation, you're going to get left behind.
And the husband who went to UPenn, who I know a lot of our friends probably know, he's on his public profile talking about how Cornell is a safety school. Yeah. Like, this isn't the time.
Wow, being a Cornell graduate.
Wow.
Yeah, well, my first experiences with this guy were telling of who he is. All right. Yeah, well, and I do. This is why
school.
I think they're all safety schools, man. I think they're all 4 years of wasted time.
I agree with
Anyways, that is why I am kind of hopeful, is that this is going to shift the incentive structure of American society. It's going to shift it for everyone and everything. No, but I mean, I think like, who knows? Maybe I'm going to regret giving him this much credit. Mark Cuban seems to be a guy who has stepped in the right direction. It's a guy who's like, all right, public concern, public issues are now what I'm about. I don't care about having a $3.8 billion as opposed to $3.5 billion. I'm going to take care of my employees. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to dedicate my time towards making sure that these various dots are connected in the public sphere. And you've got other rich people who aren't. So I mean, I think this is the type of thing that sparks some people to do the right thing, just not that much.
Yeah, I think it will.
It also just shows. To me, I look at it as like a barometer of where people are at mentally, right? Because no one thinks, look, this girl didn't think she was doing anything wrong. She didn't think she was putting herself at risk.
True.
She legitimately thought that this was totally fine.
That's the ingrained, I'm above the law.
Yeah.
Mentality.
But you don't even acknowledge, like that's the same with David Geffen. It's the most tone deaf thing. Yeah. And it's just crazy because, like I said, he wasn't trying to stun on the gram. He thought it was totally fine. She thought it was totally fine. And then you're seeing people like Mark Cuban, who I don't think Mark Cuban is looked at as like the most generous guy in the world. But when something really happens, he knows how to treat it. Right. And it's even the tone that you speak. It's just like, this thing is really exposing who people are and how absurd shit got.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that one thing in terms of like, all right, what impact is that? Like, morale's a thing, man. Like, people need more. This is a massive psychological trauma upon society, okay? If you're helping morale, you're helping the cause. And if you're hurting morale, you're hurting the cause. Even if you can't find a tangible expression of that.
And I think this is going to be so bad and last for so long that people are going to remember that. Like I think 3 months ago, if you were like, Johnny Positivity and, hey guys, get up today and do your thing. It was kind of like, all right, shut up, dude.
Yeah.
Now I think people legitimately will remember how you made them feel through this time because it is so devastating.
Yeah.
Trump is saying.
When he prefaces,
we could have a whole segment called Trump is saying.
Yeah.
Trump is
it's called the media in general. That's what they do every day.
Yeah. He is looking forward to having sports stadiums full by August. So great news. We all miss sports. I think we might as well keep some of this unrealistic optimism flowing.
I think it's genius what he said.
Why?
Because that's what America wants. America, the fact that we said this weeks ago that there's probably not going to be a normal sports season for the rest of this year. And most people thought that was the most heinous thing you could say.
Yeah.
Is that the fact that...
That was worse than saying the N-word at that point.
Yes. And then that the fact that there might not be an NFL season or not be the NFL season that you're used to exist this year is going to be so incomprehensible for so many people. Trump gave you that dangle of hope because in August 15th, he could say, hey, it's not the safest thing. And you know what? The people of, in Denver are going to be like, you know what? It's not that safe. We should just wait till December to start the season when we have a vaccine. He played it right. People want football seasons back. That's just what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of plays into two things that I kind of noticed about Trump that someone, after the election day in 2016 and my head was spinning, I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And one dude who I intelligence I respect who had been a Trump guy, I'm like, explain this thing to me, man. What's going on here? And it's two things. One, I asked him, is he really going to try to build a wall? He's like, the dude's a real estate developer. It was his opening bid.
Yeah.
Okay? He's anchoring.
Yeah.
He's saying, hey, everybody, let's try. Here's my opening bid. Everybody opens up and business back to normal like August. That is to push these guys to try to figure something out.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think it's unrealistic for them to figure something out.
Yeah,
it's not going to
agree.
be we could even, it's a super interesting topic. Maybe you guys do it another time, like the NBA in Vegas. I think there's a lot of potential legitimacy to that idea.
I've heard in some group chats that you originated that idea.
I didn't originate it. A guy, I was close.
Because that's actually gaining steam for people that don't know.
I was close to the originate. Okay, I was close to the origination. Maybe I got to ask the guy who originated it if he's okay with being. But I unpacked it a little bit and told a few people about it. But it originated in a group chat that I.
What
that
is
I was
the idea?
Essentially, to use Vegas as turn the NBA for the rest of this year, at least in the next few months, into kind of like NBA in Vegas, like summer league on steroids.
Got it.
Right?
Only play there.
Only play there.
Test
everyone. It's got because other than the strip, there's no one there,
Yeah.
right? So you could set something up so it would be weird, right? Everyone who gets tested or has to do some sort of verification on the way into the strip.
No fans though.
It could go no fans, or it could be fans, but limited fans. They're just gonna have to say, guys, if you apply and it would almost be like a lottery with tickets.
Yeah.
If you apply and you get the ticket, but then you test positive, okay, we'll give you a voucher to a game whenever something like that. But if you're clean, we're gonna have this process in place, that process in place, that process in place. Or maybe you just go no fans and just do it summer league with no fans. But Vegas, they have the infrastructure because they do summer league. 2, it's hot as shit starting in about a month.
Yeah.
Right? And so if this heat thing proves out, starts to become something kind of realistic.
What about this? Can I give you a scenario though? What if LeBron, obviously most dramatic, LeBron tests positive. He's now out for, let's say, a month. What do you do with the fairness of that? The Lakers just play without LeBron? Because some players are going to be positive. Of all the players,
There's not that many, dude. I mean, there's only we got
the
37,
Jazz
right?
knocked out.
we only got 400 players and staff. Maybe you're only trying to do a controlled experiment of about 2,000-3,000 people.
but don't you think there's a fairness issue there? I guess.
But that's the thing. You have to do you have to test at a certain, and this is definitely an issue to solve, right? You test a certain period ahead of time, right? You test everyone, then you go and make sure everyone's negative. You might have to have 2 test phases. Test everyone, make sure everyone's negative. Everyone has to self-isolate with their family for 2 weeks. Then you come back, you test them again.
Yeah. 'Cause that's what I'm saying. All it takes is your sister had to work her job and she came back to the house. And you know what I'm saying? Just that's the part that seems so crazy to me.
100%, but it's either that or lock it up and nobody gets paid for 9 months.
Yeah.
So here's the problem, because I agree what you said. He's anchoring when he says these things, and he's
Sure.
trying to force people into action. But the problem is the amount of pain that incurs, because now you have players, coaches, personnel that think mentally oh, I'm going to be back by August.
Yeah.
I'm good. I thought I only need to save for 3 months. The rippling effects are just
Yeah, because you had a post about this, right?
yeah, I was just there's not going to be sports in 2020.
Yeah.
All right, well, the other piece of the whole kind of stuff about Trump that's a little weird, but kind of is interesting and informative. Ever heard of a book called The Power of Positive Thinking?
He might have. He's our book guy.
Okay.
I
haven't read a book.
Heard of it, but I haven't read it.
The Power of Positive Thinking, one of the most famous self-help books of all time. It's written by a guy named either Norman Vincent Peale or Vincent Norman Peale. Might have fucked that one up. I'm going with Norman Vincent. Norman Vincent Peale was a pastor. You know whose pastor he was? Donald Trump's. Okay? Donald Trump lives, breathes, sleeps, eats in his veins the power of positive thinking to an extent that the normal person does not.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm not justifying, Anand, I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, it's kind of like, it's just acknowledged. That's
my
how the dude
point is just like, to actually protect the people that are affected by these closures, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem is I don't think...
And sorry, you could, after you go, then...
I'll be quick. I don't think this is I'm kind of sick of this, like, positive thinking. Let's just underbrace for how bad it's going to be next time. Let's just keep people along. And because it'll make this chain of constant devastation as well, because now people's hopes are up over and over again, getting crushed. I mean, everyone I talk to, regular people, truly believe that it was a fluke that we got locked down for an extra month. And at the end of April, things opened back up to complete normal. And people are shopping accordingly, planning accordingly. Like, I think we need a leader that's going to say, yo, this shit is fucking terrible. We might not have sports for everyone plan for this.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. When I say that and all that stuff about Trump and the power of positive thinking, it's like, all right, this is why. Yeah. He does it. And this is the explanation for why he goes in this direction, not that it's the right direction. What I think is that there's got to be something in between, which is acknowledging that some territories are actually going to be pretty good, but that to open society back up is going to be more uncomfortable than people think. Yeah. Okay, and this could be an entire show, but like contact tracing, sorry guys, government's going to be checking you test positive, government's going to check your phone data to see who you were around the last 48 hours. It's how they're doing it in South Korea. It's how they're doing it in Germany. It's how they're doing it in Israel. Okay.
You're right, but how the hell is that going to get approved?
They're just going to do it.
They're just going to do it.
That's like the whatever.
Contact tracing
Patriot Act,
and testing are the only two ways to solve this.
Yeah, this testing, I mean, a couple guys I follow who are super smart, like, this is how they describe it. It's like, it's testing everybody, contact tracing the people who test positive, test those people that they were around within, I think now they're saying it's 48 hours before they tested positive or had symptoms, and isolating everyone who tests. And it's like a sponge, like a wet sponge. You keep squeezing you keep doing that on a cycle. You cycle that over and over. And it's like squeezing a sponge, squeezing a sponge, squeezing a sponge until it's like almost dry. And there's really no other way to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
It's wild. Okay. All right, here's our last story. Kobe Bryant is officially in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Woo! Some positive news.
I mean, it's not like it's a big surprise.
No, he was a shoe-in.
And this is, just to be clear, because I know the immediate backlash is, he passes away and then you add him to... This was the timing all along.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think he wouldn't have been pushed
God
off.
damn it, what a shame. Down. Like, I would have loved to hear that speech.
So
it would have been something special.
Kobe, Tim Duncan, and Kevin Garnett, and I think the induction's in August 29th. That'll also be weird. Are we going to have Zoom Hall of Fame speeches?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the type of thing where maybe, let's say that they're allowing gatherings of like 100 people.
Right.
Right? Like that's not that far-fetched. Maybe somehow they work it in like that. And also people were talking about, who speaks for him.
Yeah.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to wonder. Like, they have to put together a thing, right?
Right.
I mean, his memorial was pretty much his Hall of Fame. They had everyone there.
Yeah.
I thought that was perfectly captured his entire life.
They did that really well for sure. I mean, is it his wife? But is it someone who's more basketball oriented? But then
gotta be Jordan, right?
No, it'd probably have to be more like a Phil Jackson or something.
You kind of need everyone to do similar to the.
I feel like you need a collab.
Yeah.
It seems like it would need to be an ensemble, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to have Shaq there. I mean, you got to have all the people that
Jerry
he played
West.
with. Jerry West for sure, because he didn't speak at the memorial, right?
He didn't, but he spoke on the TNT inside the NBA one.
He had some good. Yeah, those are tough to watch
for sure.
Okay, well there we have it, guys. Matt, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for not only coming on and just doing a great job, but keeping the information flowing, keeping the thoughts flowing. I know at least for me, it can feel a little awkward opening up that live and doing a solo rant. You're not showing it if you feel uncomfortable.
Thank you, brother.
There's something that we've talked about on the podcast about Bill Ackman specifically. He made a ton of money shorting it and then claims he went long. Yeah. This is live, and I think this is going to pick up in the next 24 hours. he's saying how he's so optimistic, everything's reopening, everything's good, because that's called a pump and dump.
Yeah, because
Say
he's
that
already,
stuff.
he went long last week. These guys are vultures.
Crooks. Matt, your Instagram is just at Matt Bilinski, right?
Yeah, MattBilinski.
Twitter,
Can we
same?
expect the
The
live?
same. Yeah. I've definitely, I got to work out a few production. You guys got the production value here. I'm still like, what the hell are these shadows doing? I should have some really cool stuff coming up. Some people from the business community, from law enforcement, and hopefully you guys get in the mix. So
Yeah.
You need to buy is just one of those ring lights,
Yeah, that's
you buy one of those, like a good old fashioned influencer, it'll make you look like you're on a set.
See, lawyer and Twitter flamethrower. All I know is the verbal stuff. I don't know the physical production
Twitter
stuff.
flamethrower. That's good. I like that.
Okay,
Exactly.
guys, keep your heads up. We don't know when, but sometime you'll get back out of that house.
Yeah.
We're not going to make any promises over here on group chat.
No.
Buckle up. Don't spend on unnecessary stuff, except for all that stuff Pete talked about. And we'll see you on Wednesday.